in active conversation. So I think that's serious.
They are introducing the idea. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Janice Charette, Mark Carney's pick for negotiating CUSMA, starting to drip feed Canadians that maybe we won't get a CUSMA deal by July 1st, and that's okay. We don't need to get a deal. The deal we have is fine, and we don't need to talk about Donald Trump potentially ripping up the whole agreement. No, we're not going to talk about that. We've got Dominic LeBlanc. Looks like he's pretty stressed out. We've got liberals attacking Pierre Poilievre. We've got mainstream media attacking Pierre Poilievre. What else is new? It's every single day. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off, we got Andrew Scheer posting this. While Carney keeps giving the same speech over and over, his policies keep driving costs up. The result of his liberal record, Canadians are drowning in debt. And we see 103% of GDP. Canadian households have the most debt in the G7. He can't blame this on Trudeau anymore. He can't blame this on Harper. This is all Mark Carney. Moving ahead, we've got Stephen McKinnon with this. Today, we introduce the Canadian Space Launch Act. That's right. This legislation will deliver sovereign space launch capabilities to Canada to help create a new 40 billion space launch industry in Canada. Yeah, right. We know this is not going to happen. We got this guy here, Peter McCaffrey, president of the Alberta Institute, posting this. I promise I'm not joking. This is Canada's spaceport. Last month, the federal government paid $200 million to a company called Maritime Launch Services to lease it for 10 years. Welcome to Canada Spaceport, folks. In some world news here, we've got Donald Trump extending the Iran ceasefire upon Pakistani request. We've got Meta investing $1 billion in new data center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That money's not coming to Canada. Of course not. And Pakistan here thanking Trump for extending the Iran ceasefire. JD Vance is not going over there. Trump announces deal to keep 2 U.S. coal plants running. You're not going to see that in Canada. Japan posts a 667 billion yen trade surplus in March. Converted, that's about 5.7 billion Canadian dollars, saying the Asian nation's overall exports went up 11.7%, beating forecasts. What do you know? They got a conservative government, and that's what's happening in Japan. We've got UN chief welcomes Trump's ceasefire extension. Trump claiming Iran wants the Strait of Hormuz open. This just is a gong show. It's open, it's closed. It's open, it's closed. We've got this one here breaking. The UK passes lifelong ban on buying tobacco and vapes for everyone born after 2008. The law meant to create a smoke-free generation will come into effect 2027. So if you're born after 2008, you can't have it in the UK. Look at this one here from CTV. They're already trying to prep Canadians. Same day Carney announces his expert trade advisory committee, the chief negotiator, is already prepping Canadians for another failed deadline. That's coming off of this here. Canada's trade negotiator says not all U.S. trade issues may be resolved by July 1st. They're already starting to prepare Canadians that no deal will come. But don't worry, they're going to direct their focus on to how bad Poilievre is.
There's a lot of focus on July 1st, which is kind of a checkpoint. It's not a cliff. It's not, nothing. It's not determinative of the future of our trading relationship. The USMCA, the trading agreement, does remain in place. And I think just given, the number of issues on the plate of our friends in USTR who are doing deals around the world, as well as the importance of getting this right, I don't think we should expect, and Jameson Greer has said this, that necessarily we're going to have everything resolved with a bow ready to go by July the 1st. It's really important, I think, to focus on getting a comprehensive solution, not necessarily a fast solution.
If we don't properly negotiate with them, they might just pull out of it. I believe there's a 6-month clause on that to pull out of it altogether.
So not quick, not rush, doing it right. And so Canada is very proactively engaged here with the United States, with Mexico, making our way through, ready to talk about any of the issues that they raise. So July the 1st, unlikely necessarily, as I said, to be the resolution of everything. We are hoping that the resolution that comes will deal both sides with tariffs as well as the underlying framework. I think what we heard through the consultations is really important here. That is, USMCA is a very good, strong agreement. There is no need to renegotiate. There's no need to open it up and change fundamental underpinnings of it. It is a robust agreement. And so we don't have a lot of tinkering to do there. Obviously, the United States and Mexico and ourselves, we all have issues that we want to look at. And if there's a consensus for us to make changes, we can do that.
Yeah, but what if America doesn't like the deal that they have and they just want to pull out? Then our economy's screwed. It's right here on the United States-Mexico agreement, CUSMA. Right down here, it says withdrawal. Article 34.6, a party may withdraw from this agreement by providing written notice of withdrawal to the other parties. A withdrawal shall take effect 6 months after a party provides written notice to the other parties. You're telling me that Donald Trump is not thinking about this? He can pull out of this agreement by the end of the year. If Carney doesn't negotiate this and just refuses to talk about supply management, they may just rip up the whole thing and our entire economy will crumble. Carney doesn't care. He's 91% invested in America. Why is the media not talking about this?
It's not the same circumstance as October, but to say that there are no conversations or I forget the exact phrase the ambassador said.
Serious negotiations.
Yeah,
because,
I don't.
So you disagree with it. What is happening? Because what you're describing right now is just talks. Like,
if there were serious negotiations, it wouldn't be 5 months in between Carney talking to Trump. Carney doesn't care about getting a deal. Our tool and die industry, which is the industry that makes machines that make other things, whether it's cars and autos, but it could also be toaster ovens and microwaves, any machine that's custom made that makes other stuff. This industry is about to die in Canada because the tariffs have gone up so much that these companies can't eat the cost. And we're going to have this entire industry, which is the backbone of manufacturing in Canada, get wiped out. This is so serious, and Carney isn't even talking about it.
people are talking. What do we take from that?
Well, but Secretary Lutnick or Ambassador Greer, if they didn't think there was some benefit, they're not going to have 45-minute meetings, 1-hour meetings, schedule other meetings with us if they didn't think it was serious. So, like, it's serious in the sense that we're discussing serious issues with them in active conversation. So I think that's serious. But I also recognize that what we thought was a circumstance last fall is now tied into the broader CUSMA review conversation. We're ready for those discussions. We're always ready and have been ready for a long time. So I'm not pessimistic, Vashi, about our ability to continue those negotiations. If we wanted to sign a bad deal or concede a whole bunch of things that wouldn't be in Canada's economic interest, we may have been able to sign a bad deal some time ago. But we've said that we're not going to do that, and we're not going to concede a series of things just to have another meeting to get another list of things that we should concede. That's not the way it's going to work.
Something very funny is going on here. So they almost had a deal, what was it, back in October or September? And then suddenly the deal fell apart. Remember, Donald Trump said, Canadians are going to love me so much. Carney's team goes down to America. They're supposedly going to sign this deal, and then it falls apart. Something happened there. What I think happened is Carney intentionally tanked that deal. He just wanted to make it seem like a deal was close, but then it fell apart because otherwise it looks like he's doing nothing. When in reality, he needed Donald Trump to be the boogeyman and fearmonger to get a majority government. Now, the floor crosser thing has worked out for him, so he doesn't need to do that, but he still probably wants that in his back pocket because if he gets people voting against him, rolling out his net zero agenda and destroying Canada, maybe some of these liberals wake up, then he wants to be able to go to an election and get a bigger majority government. So I don't think they ever had any intention of actually signing that deal. Is all for show. And I think Donald Trump was caught off guard by that. Seemed like he thought that deal was going to happen, and then suddenly it didn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't have tweeted out saying that Canadians are going to love me by the end of the day, or whatever that tweet was. A great deal maker, and according to Carney, the only person that could get a deal with Trump needs conservatives, unions, and business people to give him advice. The fake and fraud PM is asking for advice. What could go wrong? That's right. I thought Mark Carney was the Trump whisperer. He was going to get the deal that no one else could. Turns out, nope. He's asking for all this advice. Is he trying to desperately save this situation now, or what's going on? He's already got his majority, so is he just going to get a deal so it makes him look better, or is he going to keep using Trump as the boogeyman? It's kind of sad that he can use the situation either way and get support from Canadians. Moving ahead, you got to check out this. So we got Kerry Deoit here, conservative of Edmonton, Greichbach, sitting here with the vice president of CTV. Listen to this. This is something I keep bringing up on the channel. I couldn't believe it.
Mr. Gray, Scott Reed, Paul Martin's former communications director, is a vocal detractor, critic of our conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, and a regular CTV commentator on Vasi Capello's show. I'm told that recently his son, Jack Reed, was named a senior advertising advisor in Carney's PMO, and that seems to me a bit of a conflict of interest. Do you think that Scott Reed should be featured on CTV given this conflict of interest, or at the very least, shouldn't this be disclosed to your audience?
Every time that Scott Reed appears on air, we identify him as liberal. We do that with, all of our political analysts. We do that when Lisa Raitt appears as a conservative analyst. We do that when Thomas Mulcair appears as an NDP analyst.
Do you mention that his son works for the Prime Minister?
No, we don't.
Isn't that?
Why is he laughing about that? This is what I'm saying. They should be making it clear that his son works for Mark Carney. It's not enough to say he's a liberal when he's directly connected to Mark Carney. You could say Christy Clark is a liberal, but she's not really connected to the Carney Liberals at all. We know this because the CBC completely axed her on her first day trying to run for Liberal leadership. This information, too, isn't hearsay. It came directly from Scott Reid himself. He slipped it out during one of these podcasts here that I guess he didn't maybe think that people would see this or whatever.
So what does the Liberal campaign do with that? Like, no disrespect to certainly your son, Scott, but like I think the Liberal advertising has been largely underwhelming.
Yeah, and you'd only say that if Scott's son is a part of the Liberal team, which he is. This article came out here saying Prime Minister Mark Carney has added a number of new aides to his team, including a senior advertising advisor and research coordinator. Stepping into the former title is Jack Reid. Reid is the son of political commentator Scott Reid, a principal with Fashuk Reid and former director of communications to the then Prime Minister Paul Martin. Scott Reid noted his son's new job in a recent episode of the Hurl Burley podcast. Scott Reid's son is working with Mark Carney. This is a conflict of interest. Scott Reid shouldn't be on CTV, or if he is, then it has to be big, bold letters. They have to name it out that his son works for Mark Carney. And I'm very pleased to see this in committee.
Isn't that fairly pertinent?
I don't believe so, no.
When Justin Trudeau won in 2015, Bruce Anderson, whose daughter worked in the PMO's office, recused himself from the at-issue panel when commenting on CBC. So does CBC have higher ethics than CTV?
I'm not familiar with what you just shared, but, based on what you said, he chose to recuse himself.
But isn't that not the journalistic ethical thing to do? When you have a direct conflict, for instance, the conflict that this person on your panel has somebody who works for the Prime Minister of Canada.
We do not misrepresent the point of view that Scott Reid offers. We label him as a liberal every time he appears on air.
He's more than just a liberal, however. His son works, I'm told, for the Prime Minister of Canada. You don't disclose that.
No.
That's unfortunate.
It's funny he brings up Bruce Anderson. Just today I found out Bruce Anderson has blocked me on Twitter. I was trying to reply to one of the things he posted and nope, can't do that. He does not like that I have him mapped out here. Jumping back to the CUSMA renegotiations, Carney's now set up a new team of business leaders to, get a deal now? He already had one of these for the past year. Mark Carney has appointed a new advisory committee on Canada-US economic relations. Is this just trying to put up the facade that he's doing something to try to get a deal? Throughout these names here, we've got Lisa Raitt, conservative. We also got Aaron O'Toole down here, not really conservative. Don't recognize most of the names. I mean, there's Jean Charest. Is anything going to come from this? I doubt it. But we've got Carney giving his 2 cents on this in the halls of the House of Commons.
The council will give advice to... I lost my breath. I got to get back in shape. Minister LeBlanc, myself, Madame Charette as the negotiator, other ministers. I'm very pleased to have that group. It's a diverse group, leaders from the union movement, experts in industry, and CEOs in finance and across the economy.
He's bringing in a bunch of people. It looks good. Where's the results? Going back to the list here, Aaron O'Toole, one of the people added to that list. Canada first, Canada last, Canada always. He came out with a statement here. I'm honored to serve Canada on the advisory committee on the Canada-US economic relations, blah, blah, blah. We prepared to negotiate trade agreement with the US. A bunch of people asking if this counts as Aaron O'Toole crossing the floor. It's like, well, he's basically already a liberal before. I called Aaron O'Toole a traitor before because of this article that was all flowery about Mark Carney, and I don't trust Aaron O'Toole. I mean, obviously he came at me saying I'm an anonymous account. I responded with this graphic here. Then he went on to say the Moose chart. Most of it is wrong. Some some lacked the understanding of the history, blah, blah, blah. In this comment here, he offered to walk me through it. I took him up on it. That's why I am following him on X here. I talked to him privately about the F-35 SMR deals. We're talking these two ones here on Carney's conflicts of interest, the precision missile strike system and the F-35s. Basically, he just said that he had started a lot of these negotiations or bringing this up, and Carney continuing it isn't a conflict of interest. And yeah, it is. He owns stocks in Lockheed Martin. He should be mandated to sell his stocks. Otherwise, it's a conflict of interest. And that was it. That's all he had to say. There was no special secret information he told me that suddenly debunked the entire Moose chart. So to bring this full circle, Aaron O'Toole joining Carney's team here, I think maybe Carney wants to have him in the room closer to him so he can find out who the more easily targeted floor crossers are and bring over more people. I don't think he's bringing him in to try to get a deal with Trump. He wants to know who he can target, and that's why this guy's coming in. But who knows? So of course all the Liberals are super excited about this new advisory group.
The new council, we're very excited about the new advisory council. The Prime Minister has brought together senior business leaders in the country, senior elected union leaders, representatives of business associations, former premiers, former leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. It's very much focused on businesses that obviously have important relations with American customers, American business partners. I'm looking forward to the first meeting next week. I have spoken to a number of these people over the last number of days. This will be a forum for the Government of Canada to hear directly from business leaders, elected union leaders, and community leaders. I think it'll help our negotiations and it'll help the Government of Canada be informed in terms of these different perspectives.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It probably benefits him to get a deal with Trump to say, look, I did it. I got a deal with Trump. But if he wants to go to another election and get a bigger majority, then he needs to keep Trump as the boogeyman and fear-mongering. Now, if Trump loses power in the midterms, then he becomes less of that boogeyman. So there's a lot of moving pieces here of what they're really planning on doing. But maybe they just want to bring over more floor crossers. That's easier for Carney. Carney's a lazy guy who doesn't want to do the work of campaigning again. It's easier to bring in a guy like Aaron O'Toole and pick his brain on who he thinks he could bring in as another floor crosser. Time will tell. We'll see what happens here. Now, with this, we have Pierre Poilievre dropping some serious truth bombs here.
What do you think of being on this council?
It's great. At the end of the day, though, what we need is action. Mark Carney was elected on the singular promise that he would negotiate a win with the Americans. Since that time, American tariffs have doubled and broadened on Canadian goods. Carney's given us the worst economy in the G7, the only shrinking economy in the G7. We're hemorrhaging jobs. Just 10 days ago, the Americans hit us with much bigger tariffs on products that include Canadian steel. And what has Mark Carney done, really, in a year on this? He hasn't held negotiations in 5 months. The Mexicans are going to be at the table formally with the Americans any day. The only talks that Mark Carney is doing are YouTube videos where he's comparing himself to Sir Isaac Brock and holding up little figurines in his office.
I should note too, that video that Carney put up has 430 some odd thousand views, so it's been seen by a lot of Canadians.
Oh, he told all of you the other day that with his new majority, he was going to stop showboating. And then a few days later, he put out a showboating YouTube video, right? The 2.6 million Canadians whose jobs depend on getting rid of these terrible American tariffs have had about enough of Mark Carney making false promises and delivering the worst economy in the G7. And by the way, you were all very critical of me. You said that I needed to be more clear in my plans with Canada-US. I've laid out an extremely detailed plan to counter American tariffs and to fight for US trade. My position is clear. Build up leverage, use that leverage to get rid of American tariffs on aluminum, steel, autos, and lumber. What is Mark Carney's plan? What are his intentions? Has Mr. Carney even stated whether he wants to renew USMCA at all? He said yesterday trade with the U.S. is a big, or in his video, he said trade with the U.S. is a big weakness. So does that mean that he wants to end USMCA?
This is such a smart way to bring up that Carney's doing nothing. And he hasn't laid out his plan. He does not even telling what he's doing, and he hasn't talked to Trump in 5 months. It's very clear he doesn't want to get a deal. Poilievre is bringing this up in the best way possible because it gets people thinking.
If he wants it renegotiated, does he want a full overhaul? A few tweaks? What are his demands? Has he waved the white flag on getting rid of the tariffs on aluminum, steel, autos, and lumber? or is he still fighting that fight? Does anybody know what Mark Carney's plan is? I don't, honestly, I mean, does anybody here know what his plan is?
It's true. He has no plan. There is no plan from Carney aside from fearmonger with Donald Trump and stay in power as long as possible. And that's one thing to point out here. We don't have a lot of hope in Canada right now, but just think of this. Donald Trump will be out of office in almost 3 years, little less than 3 years, which means the Liberals can't keep using that to stay in power. They'll have to run on the record. The record is awful. We will get rid of the Liberals eventually here. Meanwhile, we got Francois Philippe Champagne here, asked in French. Mr. Poilievre stopped by here this morning. What do you think about that? He says, I don't know. Was he lost? It's so arrogant.
J'ai pas compris. Monsieur Poilievre s'est arrêté ici ce matin. Je sais pas. Est-ce qu'il était perdu?
You can see that the arrogance of these guys, every single one of them. Moving ahead, we've got once again another CBC clip and once again another CBC pundit, as Mark Nixon stating, gaslighting the Canadian public. Just imagine if they criticize Carney the same way they criticize Poilievre.
The issue with Monsieur Poilievre is that he constantly tries to change his tone, tries to change his approach, and we see it for a few days, maybe a few weeks, but he always goes back to his natural instincts, if I can say, the fighter side of him. And that's not what's working with Canadians. And I would also remind him that it's not what works with his part of his caucus, a growing part of his caucus, I would say. And so that is also the risk that, sure, there's this courting his base and going back to the basic, criticizing opposition.
So skipping ahead here, she mentions once again, as they all keep mentioning, oh, he's attacking his credentials.
Things like criticizing Mr. Carney's education or his work earlier in his career.
Yeah, and as I just showed you, Carney's record as the Bank of England governor is awful. It ruins that country's GDP.
Quite frankly, makes no sense.
It makes a lot of sense. This buffoon has no idea. She should look some stuff up before she says words on national television.
And at a certain point, when Mr. Poilievre just constantly says everything is bad, everything is broken, you kind of start sounding like the little boy who cried wolf.
No, everything is bad and broken right now. They're helping Mark Carney get rich and destroy our country. She should be ashamed of herself, along with all these other buffoons they bring on here.